Dear colleagues and friends, welcome to the third International Conference of the Quarantine Studies Network. I hope all of you, members and associates of the network, participants in the conference, and followers of our activities, with your families, have remained healthy and safe throughout this difficult period. To be honest, when we planned this conference about a year ago, even when we established this network back in 2014, we could not imagine that we would find ourselves in the midst of a global pandemic, more or less strictly confined at our homes and within our countries of residence. It is true that our network took its first steps and held its first conference during the Western Africa Ebola virus outbreak of 2014. Which resulted in a handful of cases in Spain, Italy, the United Kingdom, and the US. However, and despite the warnings of earlier epidemics in this 21st century, and the alerts of various international bodies about the risk of an airborne disease spreading throughout the world, we could barely imagine that a pandemic would strike Europe and the Western world, and even more that we would experience quarantine in the first person. In truth, one of the main concerns behind the creation of our network had only a second-hand relation to health. It was the sharp rise in the arrival of migrants to Southern Europe from Islamic Mediterranean countries as a result of the so-called Arab Spring revolutions that occurred between 2010 and 2012, and of the various crises and civil wars that followed in countries like Syria and Libya. We perceive the response of the European Union towards this migration resemble in many ways the old sanitary defense against epidemics of previous centuries. Not only were migrants generally regarded as a threat that was necessary to check, but they were also placed in detention camps located in remote sites, including small islands that call to mind the old lazaretos. That is why our first conference held in Malta in October 2014 bore the title Mediterranean Under Quarantine. Naturally, as the founders of the network were either historians of medicine or social scientists having done substantial work related to lazaretos and sanitary cordons, we had a keen interest in sanitary quarantines. However, one of our main goals as a network has been to move from quarantine history to quarantine studies. That is, to expand the concept of quarantine from its original sense restricted to the field of health and disease, to one that served to describe and understand processes in other spheres of society. Or to put it in other words, to release the analytic potential of the concept of quarantine for application in other disciplinary fields. In this sense, the sort of neo-quarantinist terminology that has been deployed during the present pandemic of COVID-19, far from just providing a purely technical description of public health measures, may be seen to convey larger social, economic, cultural, and political meanings. The concept of social distancing is especially illustrative of this. Coined as a label for an epidemiological strategy aimed to reduce the spread of the new coronavirus, it nevertheless reveals previously existing trends toward political and social conflicts worldwide, as well as a mounting economic gap between winners and losers of globalization. With regard to lockdown, it does not just designate the home confinement of people and the closure of land, sea, and air borders of states for public health reasons, but also reflects the global rise of economic protectionism and political nationalism exemplified by the commercial war between the United States and China, or by the Brexit crisis in the European Union. In this, our third international conference, we propose containment as a potentially fertile expansion of quarantine. The concept of containment is present in many disciplines, from epidemiology, where it refers to a phase in the management of epidemics, as we have learned during this period, to sociology, where it designates a theory of social control concerned with the internal and external checks that prevent people from breaking the rules. Containment is used from geography, where it designates a geographical logic connecting territorial and spatial forms of enclosure, such as imprisonment, with broader psychological forms of restraint, to political science, where containment has served to turn the geopolitical fight against fascism in the 1930s and against communism during the Cold War. Containment has been used in psychology and also in environmental science, where it refers to the retention of hazardous material so as to ensure that it is effectively prevented from dispersing into the environment. We think there is a common ground beneath all these disciplinary senses of containment. On the one hand, that of containment as a transversal mechanism or technology for handling threats. On the other hand, the essentially transversal nature of threats as such. Our conference title, Matters of Containment, Material Approaches to the Handling of Threats in the Modern World, proposes thus an exploration of this common ground that additionally puts the focus on the materiality of containment rather than in knowledge or discourse. We are interested, for example, in the parallels and intersections existing between barriers set up to protect populations against epidemic disease, nuclear and chemical waste, or natural disasters. We are also interested in exploring how the creation of laboratories in border customs, for example, intended not just to protect the health of a country's population against adulterated products, but also that country's industry or agriculture against the damage caused by the invasion of other countries' products. We are also interested in exploring how the detention and examination of the bodies of migrants and refugees aims often not just to provide sanitary protection, but also ideological and economic protection to the population of a host state. The program of our conference gathers over 30 contributions from all over the world that will deal with these and similar topics. We have grouped the papers in 4 thematic sections. Non-human objects, which is articulated around non-humans as neglected objects of containment measures. Nuclear chemical containment, which deals with barriers established against nuclear chemical plants, waste, or warfare. Epidemic containment, on the ways of handling epidemic outbreaks. And finally, disturbing bodies, which deals with bodies of collectives perceived as alien and as a threat to social order. As you can see, the present situation has obliged us to renounce to our scheduled in-person meeting, which was going to take place in Lisbon on the 28th and 29th of May. So we have transformed it into a virtual conference, consisting in recorded video presentations that we will gradually post in our Facebook and Twitter sites so that they are available for all participants, network followers, and the general public. With regard to written texts, they will be accessible only to conference participants so that they can be read and discussed by all of them. One or several publications will be prepared later with this material in the following months. In the name of the organizing committee, my QSN colleagues Celia Miralles Buil from the University of Lisbon and Laurinda Abreu from the University of Évora, and myself, I would like to thank all participants for the effort to prepare the contributions in a difficult moment for doing intellectual work in the best conditions. We would also like to thank the financial, administrative, and technical support of the CIDEUS of the University of Évora and the Center for History of Science of the University of Lisbon. We have lived and learned a lot of things during these past 2 months, and I am sure not just our conference planning, but the very content of our presentations has been transformed as a result. I am sure you will agree that it is more necessary than ever to carry out our research on quarantines and to bring it closer to society, trying to shed some light on a world that, always multifaceted and confusing, seems to be even more now. We hope you enjoy the conference and declare it open.